Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's live stream. It's just me tonight. Gonna get a few things off my chest. I'm gonna be saying some probably harsh things. I apologise if at any point I do swear. I don't often swear, so it'll be unusual if I do. But first of all, I'd like to say a quick sorry about last Monday's live stream with Alex Williams, Amanda Williams, and Tim Thomas. It was going to be a good live stream on uh, parking at schools, drop-off points, and things, and that. All three of those councillors have been campaigning in their areas to try and get a better solution for the schools and for residents around the area. I will have them on at some point, I hope, after tonight, if people still want to come talk to me. But yeah, get on to it. Secondly, I'm going to apologise because I've been quite angry for the last few days, and this built up, and this is what's going to come out tonight. I'm sorry if I'm not looking directly at the camera all the time. It just feels weird just to look at this little camera in front of me. So I'll probably be looking up at the screen. It's not that I'm narcissistic and like the look of myself. I really don't. It's the fact that it just feels weird just staring into a camera. Okay, I'm going to do things in order of what's annoyed me this week. It's probably a combination of my medication, not being well at the start of the week, but I'm getting angry and snapping at the slightest little thing. I will say, if anybody does want to come and join me on the stream and they're not worried about what I'm going to say or anything like that, please drop me a message either on here or probably Messenger on my phone would be better. Then yeah, just drop me a message. So I've got two people here at the moment, which is great. I'm guessing people don't really want to hear me speak on my own. I'm not the interesting part. It's the people I have on that make this interesting and that. But tonight I wasn't going to ask anybody in particular to be on because, as I said, there's a few things I want to say. So I'm going to start, and I'll start with Arbed and what's come out this week, with the fact that they tried to cancel it being part of a council meeting this week, the report of Arbed and things like that, and the response that they've had from South Wales Police and the Ombudsman, the auditors, sorry, in response to what they were going to do. Well, we all know what's happened with the Arbed scheme. It's well publicised, not just on Facebook or on this channel. It's been on the news a lot, and it's disgusting what has happened. And it really is, and how anybody could justify what's gone on in any particular way. And yes, there has been justification from people, especially from the leader of the council, Hugh David, and his cabinet, because even though Hugh David, we know he had seen the initial report in January 2019, and yet still kept the member responsible as part of his cabinet. The member who is at the heart and centre of this, who, in my opinion, was lucky that South Wales Police has not taken anything up, because there's certainly fraud charges that could have been brought as far back as 2019. Unfortunately, the councillor in question now has passed away. So there's no justice in things and that. But I don't know whether it was the Labour-led council that have tried not to have the meeting this week, or BCBC officers who tried not to have a part of the meeting this week. I really don't know. I haven't read up on everything. as I said, I was ill at the start of the week, and I just stayed away from Facebook for the first few days and anything reading and things like that. I just wasn't up to it. I was physically ill. I accidentally poisoned myself with mushrooms. I am intolerant to them, and they make me very ill. But so we know that as back as early as January 2019, when the pre-report was done, or post-report, an initial report, shall we say, was done, that the leader would have known about it and did know about it. It's been confirmed that he did know. And so he would know the person involved, the councillor involved, but yet kept him as part of the cabinet or gave him a cabinet position after that point, which is an endorsement of the member of that councillor. It's an endorsement of the work they do. So to me, that's Hugh David endorsing what that person did with his companies and what the abhorrent things and the way that people have had to live for the last 10 years with their properties. Some of it is absolutely disgusting. I haven't been and seen personally. I've seen the news reports where they've spoken to a lovely lady down there, Mary Allen Goodall, and showed the bits wrong with her house. It's disgusting that for 10 years that people have had to live like this. This shouldn't have been oh no, let's find out who's responsible and who we can pay. This should have been sorted by either the council straight away or the Welsh government straight away. People shouldn't have had to either wait 10 years or get it fixed themselves by paying out of their own pocket when it was something that the government were doing for them. It's disgusting in how, and we've heard there's people on the doorsteps, and I've heard of people being told, well, the council leader, Hugh David, was not involved. He wasn't the leader of the council at that point. He's got nothing to do with it. He was deputy leader at that point. He had something to do with it. And people still keep him and his party in power. Not all of Labour are bad. And let's say that. I've got immense respect for Richard Young, who's a fabulous councillor and a fabulous colleague on Coity Higher Community Council. He announced at the community council meeting that he won't be standing, and this year he's been doing it for over 30 years, and the man deserves a lot of respect and to enjoy life. He's now with his family and take the time it's richly deserved. And I have respect for David Lewis in Sarn. Fabulous councillor. I've met him a few times. I haven't met many Labour councillors personally, to be honest. I see some members of what they reply. Not all are actually active on Facebook and comment on everything. There are a certain few that do. And when they do, I find them sometimes, when they've replied to me as well, I find them condescending, belittling, and downright rude at times. I'm not just saying it's Labour that do that. Everybody does that at some point. There are BCI members that do that. I did that the other day, or yesterday, on a chat. I just had enough, and I lost my rag, and I went for it, and I got told off for using a swear word. Oh dear, poor me. But this is what I find disgusting. So our bed this week, it was tried to not be allowed on the council meeting, and well done on whatever councillors protested and tried and forced them basically into keeping it on the agenda. Whoever they were, whoever did it, as I said, I haven't read, but I know that a few councillors banded together and threatened to do something, and it was kept on the agenda and talked about. Well done to them. And that's what should be done. We shouldn't cover up mistakes. We shouldn't hide away from them. If we make mistakes, we make mistakes. You apologise. You say you've done wrong. Say you've done say you're sorry, and look how you can fix it and make it better and not repeat those mistakes. The problem is you get scripted responses like Hugh David on the news, where you could clearly see he was reading from a preempted script. We're so sorry, and things like that. You weren't sorry enough to, when you apologised, when the cabinet apologised in a council meeting, you weren't sorry enough then not to give the councillor involved a position of a governor of a school. You went and gave that councillor a position of governor of a school. That is not accepting responsibility. That is not being sorry. That's being, we can do what the hell we want and the rest of you can go screw yourself. And that is how I'm feeling at the moment. And I know this won't be 2 hours because I can't talk for 2 hours, and I'm getting really angry. I don't mind. I didn't get really angry the other week when I said I was feeling really down and depressed. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and I got an email, a messenger message that said, "Oh, why don't you do us all a favour and just kill yourself? Then we won't have to listen to you on the live on the streams anymore or interview any more of these waste of space counsellors." I don't mind people disrespecting me like that, but I'm sick and tired of the double standards that come on Facebook from our own councillors as well. Not just on Facebook, but within the council, where they think everybody's stupid, that everybody doesn't give a crap. But we do. There's a lot of people out there who do. And I'm not saying every Labour councillor is like that. There are some good Labour councillors in there who make good councillors, and if left to do what they really want to do and not have to vote a party line, they would be amazing councillors. Think for yourselves. You don't have to follow what the party says. And if you don't, and they deselect you, stand as an independent, you'll do better than what you did as a Labour councillor or a party councillor. I'm not saying all parties like that. I'm not saying all, as I said, not all Labour like that. And there are some useless independent candidates and independent councillors as well. And it swings and roundabouts. But when you're a party member, you can't fully show how good you can be, because you've got to toe the party line. You've got to vote the way the party wants you to vote, or that's it, mate, you're on your bike, get out. And that is the biggest problem. It happens at every level of government. And I can see the need for parties. I really can. I can see the need for independent voices as well. But when you're at a local level, when you're affecting the day-to-day lives of people in your constituency and in the county, you've got to be more empathetic and sympathetic to people, not what your party wants. You've got to think for yourself and do what you want to do. If you want to do and follow the party line and vote every time for tax rises or every time something to screw over the public again, fair enough. Come out and at least own it. As Charles, his name escapes me, cabinet member for education, as he did in the council meeting on the budget vote. If you vote against this, go on Facebook and explain to people why you're doing it. Okay, Mr. Charles, can somebody remind me of his name? I can't remember his last name. There's plenty of you in chat. There's 6 now. Surely you know his name. And my brain's just gone with it. Whatever his name is, same question to you. Tell us why you vote party lines. Tell us why you've put up council tax for the last 4 years, but this year, funnily enough, with elections coming up, we're going to freeze it. We got a better than expected thing from the Welsh government. Yes, you got a much better than expected thing from Welsh government. Why didn't you bloody lower it? Why didn't you do the constituents of Bridgend County a favour and lower it for once? Anyway, I'm moving off that. And then we've got South Wales Police, who are refusing, saying that no further action should be taken or looked into or whatever. No, there's been fraud there on a scale. There's been misappropriation of government funds. Okay, the cabinet member the person involved now has passed away, but surely there's going to be others involved. Anybody who is, hang on, I'm sorry, I'm getting a message. It might be from Martin at Charles Smith. Thank you, Martin. You can write it on here. There are comments here you can write. You don't need to message me here on my phone. Charles Smith, yeah, Charles Smith explained to the people of Bridgend County why you vote party lines every time and not vote with the way your constituents would like. You want other people to do that? If they vote against, explain to people why they're voting against a 1.5 million increase for education or other things. You do the same. Okay, back to the South Wales Police. There's been fraud, and it can't be just on one person in the council. You have a whole cabinet there who should have looked at every detail of what has been, was the process followed, yes, who's involved in this, what companies, and they obviously didn't. And now that cabinet, there's still people, okay, the leader at the time, Mel Knott, he's retired and that, fair enough, but it's still misappropriation of government, public funds in the government position. And we've seen people prosecuted for that after they've left government before or left a prominent position. Hugh David was the deputy chief at the time, and I'm sure there were others there who were still in the council, who were part of that cabinet, are still there. I'm sure others are there. So why weren't they doing their jobs and making sure this was done? Why wasn't this put in front of a scrutiny committee? Yes, there were short timelines, and why the Welsh government had put such a short timeline on that has to be looked at as well. But South Wales Police need to look at this more in depth detail. So I'm going to move on to the Ombudsman now, or the Audit Office, and what a waste of space the Welsh Audit Office is. Is there any point in it still being here? It's ridiculous. Let's take an example. Anna Sauda Community Council. I know some of the stuff that happened on there because I was on the council for a time after this all. Yes, Ian, who did authorise that 350,000 payment. We need to look at that as well. Right, got balance to go up actually. Here we go. Here's the first one for today. I'm not advertising the business this week because it's not fair. There's something that could be attached to my rants. Anyway, the Ombudsman, how pathetic is it? Look at Anna Sauda. I know from the documents I saw when I was on the council after all this had happened that some years an audit was put in by somebody who wasn't a registered auditor, and some years there weren't even audits put in. The Welsh Audit Office is supposed to sign off on audits every year, look at them from community councils, from town councils, and I'm guessing from Welsh Government as well. Why did they miss this for so long that let this lady, Natalie Morgan, get away with not just Anna Sauda, but Llangonoid Lower or Llangonoid Middle Community Council as well, stealing so much money? I'm not going to say alleged. I've got no money. She can sue me. I've got nothing to my name, so I don't really care. I've got nothing for her to take. So why are the Welsh Audit Office not picking something like that up? Why are they not doing their jobs essentially? And then we come to our bed. 10 projects from the last, I think it's 5 years or 6 years were looked at in the internal audit, it's only 10 projects, and not everything was completely fine and squeaky clean on them. There were certain couple of issues, if you look at the report. Okay, it's nothing major or seriously damaging, but that's only 10 out of what I'm guessing is hundreds, maybe even thousands of projects that should have been audited. Now it's only 10. That's not a great sample size. What's happened with the RBED scheme and the council should have triggered an automatic audit of all records, of all projects, to see whether this is actually a one-off or whether they've got lucky with the 10 projects that were picked at random, whether they were lucky in those 10 being okay, being fine. Because there's probably other projects, because there's been so many, and everything needs to be audited. But the Welsh Audit Office don't want to do anything, don't want to. So my question is, what is their point? They may as well go. That'll save a few £1 million a year to the Welsh Government. Give that to NHS or something, give it to councils, because the Audit Office, as it is at the moment, is not doing a good job. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, is making things up on above board, which was missed in Tondy for 5 years, or between 2012 and 2017, when it all finally came out, thanks to residents pushing and pushing, not thanks to Audit Office, not thanks to BC Council or the Labour leadership or other councillors. There were certain councillors involved. Hayden Morgan was one. Tim Thomas, after the election, during and after the election, was a big part of pushing as well. But apart from that, there was nobody from Labour side. There wasn't even your local MS, Hugh Davis, pushing for it. Your local MP at the time, Madeline Moon, she wasn't pushing for it. Or is it Chris Elmore? I think it could be Chris Elmore there, sorry. They weren't pushing for it. It was left mainly to residents and to a couple of councillors. Bridgend Council many times said, oh, it's only the town community, it's only community council, we don't really want to know. I remember that from the time that we were told by residents. They tried to go to the county council and they were told, we don't want to know, it's only community council, it's nothing to do with us. Well, yes, it is. Do your jobs. That's what you're there for. That's what you're getting paid for. And in some positions, the chief executive, you're getting paid very well for it as well. Anyway, I'll get off our bed now, but as I said, the Audit Office completely needs a revamp, or it needs to go. It's ridiculous. I won't talk about the school park, and I'll save that for if Amanda, Alex and Tim want to sit down and talk to me, because they have so much information on things like that and other things. I'm 23 minutes in, and I got the biggest bugbear that I'm going to have tonight is Facebook. Now, BCI, I won't hold back. They do have cutting remarks sometimes, and that, but their job is, as opposition to any leadership, is to point out what they're doing wrong. They're pointing out to the leadership of the council, to people within the county, what they're doing wrong, what they think is wrong. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to read them. Yes, they are supposed to be there to serve the people. It's a role of service, and they're not doing it at the moment. The leadership is certainly not doing it. And I think I can't be saying 100% sure of what the upper officers are doing, the chief executive, deputy, or the managers. I can't say whether they're told what to do by the senior leadership of Bridgend County Borough Council, or whether they are just ignoring things on their own. Anyway, back to Facebook. Yeah, BCI, they're there to point out what to people around the county who may not know, who may not see things, who may not be politically inclined or too aware, but would then see this one thing and think, damn, I didn't know that. That's bad. They scrutinised the Keir deal, which, surprise, surprise, didn't go to a full council vote. It went to a cabinet vote only. And to this date, we don't have full figures of the Keir contract of are they meeting their targets? If not, are they getting fined? For some reason, that information is very hard to get. They're not very happy to send that information out or to give it, even if under a freedom of information request. So, yeah, so BCI point out and that, and it's not just BCI, they do it to, it's done to Jamie Wallace as well, whenever he puts something, quite often when he puts something on that some people don't agree with, straight away it's attacked, and then when people defend, they get really attacked. Now, I'm all for people having their opinions and having their say, and that's fine, that's fair enough, but I don't like it when people say to me, well, you just defend BCI all the time. Well, no, I call out BCI time to time. I called out Ian Williams a few weeks ago, and that for a comment he said on the page. But I don't think But when I point out that people don't criticise Labour, especially these Labour members, these Labour activists that are on Facebook. I've had run-ins with a few of them. Some of them actually respect their opinion because sometimes they are measured and sometimes they're not. Okay then. Right. Give me 2 seconds. The councillor is happy to come in and join me while I send him all the link. Give me 2 seconds. While I send him the link for coming to join, I will carry on talking, but I'm going to have to go on to another page a second. I do apologise. Yeah, so when I call them out and say, well, you don't admonish your Labour leadership for the things they've done, such as Arbed. There's been so many problems with Arbed and everything that they don't even admonish them there. They don't say about it. And what's happened with Arbed is disgusting. I mean, it's probably one of the most disgusting things that have happened in the last term of that's come out. Not happened, but come out in the last term of this right. Hello, councillor. I've just sent you the link on Messenger. Come in when you're ready. It's one of the most disgusting things that have come about to public attention in the last 5 years, and yet nobody seems to have been punished for what's happened. Nobody seems to have been held accountable. And when you point this out on Facebook in messages, whether it's from BCI members who've done it, or I've seen people who are not even linked to BCI, not even fans of BCI, when they've commented on things saying, well, yeah, this shouldn't happen, they get attacked too. And then when you call out the other people, and I got sent a thing from Spectator yesterday that this is the trick that they do, that they claim you're harassing and bullying them. Yeah, right. I've known councillors have been attacked because of their religion, attacked because they're women, attacked because they're not liked. They've had people attacking their businesses. I had somebody attack me. Had somebody have a go about my son last year. My son, who's autistic, had a go. No wonder he's autistic, because if he's sick as shit like you. Sorry, my son is 13, and they do all this behind fake accounts that suddenly disappear when you try to reply back to them on Messenger. They're suddenly unavailable or deleted. At least have the bloody balls to come and do it to my face or online using your own account. I won't use the thing out. I'll call you out in front of you. At least have the balls to do it on your account. Anyway, it really got me. I had this weekend, and I snapped yesterday on this chat, and I said, right, I've had enough. I said, I'm sick of all this shit, not just from Labour side, but BCI as well. It's just arguments going back and forth. And BCI, what I don't like is BCI are getting the blame for everything. They're the toxic ones. When, okay, they have their moments. There's people part of who support BCI, who are BCI, that do say things that I don't agree with, can be deemed as crossing the line. Fair enough, but the Labour activists do it the most, and when you say something back, you're attacking and bullying them. You're attacking and bullying them. Yeah, they are pussies. Sullivan family, they are. I can be a keyboard warrior. We all can at times. We all have to get a bee in our bonnet, and get bees in our bonnet and have a go. And I snapped yesterday. I suffer with depression, as you all know. You've all seen the things. I suffer with depression. I'm on new medication, and I was talking to Ian Williams last night and pointed out it may be my medication just making me feel on the edge. I feel angry. I snapped at my son this morning. I snapped. He needed a tea towel for something. I gave him a tea towel and dried his hands, and then he was wrapping it around his bare feet, and his feet aren't clean. This tea towel I was looking to clean dishes with after. Wiping your hands, that's fine, fair enough, after you washed them or something. But he was wrapping around his foot, and I said, don't do that. They said, oh, sorry. Put it down. Then 5 minutes later, I saw him doing it again. I said, I've just told you not to do that. And I just snapped. And I haven't snapped like that since I was in my last relationship. And certain people know that I was in an abusive relationship. I thought this counts as being by now, so 2 seconds. Just changing. So I was in an abusive relationship. I was cut off from my family. My family were alienated from me. I could just walk by a woman on the street, and I'm quite a polite person. I'll say good morning or hello to people, men, women, children as well. And I'll be accused of sleeping with that person. I'm never even saw. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter who it was. I was accused of sleeping with them. I'll bring you in a second if you can hear me. I just finish off this thought. It doesn't matter who it was. It could have been. I was accused of sleeping with my niece. I was accused of carrying on sleeping with my ex-wife at the time because I messaged to her about my son, about when's he coming up. And they took people like the counsellor who's going to come on now, and my ex-wife and my son, to eventually point out that I needed to end the relationship, or because I was so distant and I cut myself off from everything, and it was hell for me. It really was hell. I just jumped into a relationship at the wrong time, at a time I shouldn't have, and it's taken a long time. But I've been depressed for years, and this is the first time that I've felt anger or annoyance at things in a long time. And as Ian Williams pointed out, yes, it might be my medication. So I'll go contact the doctor again tomorrow to talk about medication. But anyway, I'm going to bring in this counter now. He's been waiting patiently here for a minute. I'll let him come in and talk for a second, and I'll go have a quick drink or something. Welcome, Mark.
Hello, how are you doing? How are you doing? Is my mute? I'm not muted, am I?
No.
I just come rushing in. I was watching you on there, and I thought, oh, Luke's going on about some stuff. And then I texted you with that name, and then I thought, well, I may as well instead of being a voyeur, and was just sort of poking away from the sides. I thought, no, I'll join in. I quite like the subject you're talking about. So come and give you a hand. I'm doing this whole Doctor Who thing again now, sort of in and out of the screen a bit, but. I'm also. Forgive me. I'm really tired. I was in a wedding yesterday, which was really good fun. I'm out of practice, and it's been football all day today. So I was sitting on the sofa, and then I thought, no. Luke's there chatting about stuff that we've all got an interest in. So I think I'll come along and join the party.
Yeah, I warned my son because he told me he watches the streams, and I said, "Don't go on there tonight. You may hear me swearing a lot or saying something really bad."
Well, you haven't really lost it so far, Luke. To be fair,
No.
I think
But I
I'm
just
not
wanted
sure.
to ask.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure you played rugby in the same club as me, because your idea of swearing and my idea of swearing don't seem falls apart.
Don't worry. I can swear like a sailor. Trust me. I'm just trying to be slightly restrained, but without. Just want to ask, Jacob, are you in the live stream? If you are, please say hello on the comments. I just want to know that you're there. Because he says, "Oh, I watch it." So you should say hello sometime, and I'll say, "Oh, sympathy."
I've done something now, and now I've disappeared now, so I don't know what I've done. I pressed a button, and now
I
you see me?
don't think he's here. He would have messaged me or something by now. Anyway, I'm sorry. I've been, as I said, really stressed and really on that edge. It's not depression. I'm not feeling down. I'm feeling angry and annoyed, and then that I can't remember even what it was about. But you had all these Labour people commenting, and I won't say names. I should, and I really want to. Ian, I think Hugh David actually knew long before that, because in 2017, Chris Elmore was. Oh, sorry, not everybody would see that. There we go. Chris Elmore was actually emailing the council, the leader of the council. He was emailing the energy secretary or community secretary in Welsh Government and Westminster at the time. So that goes back as far as 2017. So should have known. He should have known. He should have been aware. And I wasn't particularly active, but I'd heard some stuff before the election in 2017. It's one even my area. I was living in in Bremennon at the time. Steve Bledsoe said he'd heard stuff about Arbed and that. So, yeah, as I say, someone got me, and I went off on them yesterday. I said, I've had enough of all this shit back and forth, and it's like BCI it was in response to something you put out, and he's saying this is the first time in a long time that I've put something on there, wasn't it, or something? And
yeah, Steve shared, and let's not beat about the bush. It's election time, yeah, and
yeah.
People, the Labour Party in this instance, the Conservatives are doing something similar. I'm sure. Independents will do something.
I'm gonna have a cigarette. I don't smoke often. I normally vape.
I'm not feeling boots. No, I mean
this weekend Steve, I was just stressed, and I bought a packet of cigarettes. And
don't worry about that. If it helps, do it. I mean, but no, Steve had put. Was it Steve? No, not Steve. It was
in response
the BCA page, wasn't it?
It was in response.
No. What I'm saying is the background is there was an electioneering photo. Clearly
planting trees.
Labour
That was it.
Planting trees, yeah, and it was a bit of tail pulling, really, wasn't it? Because someone had picked up a photo, and I don't know where it came from, but it was the mayor, the BCBC mayor, a couple of cabinet members, no, the leader and the cabinet member for communities pausing, planting a tree. Of course, there's nothing new about this. Planting a tree is
Yeah.
as old as being a councillor, isn't it? Normally, you're there in your shiny shoes with a shiny shovel, and it's almost a cliche, isn't it? And it's very obvious that you didn't plant that tree because you're not dressed for it. This one is a bit strange. This one they were sort of dressed as though they were perhaps planting a tree, but the mayor was in his gardening clothes with his chain. But of course, unknown to them is that someone had a photo of the actual guys who were planting the tree. So it was just a bit of tail pulling, wasn't it? It was that.
I,
Look at this. They're claiming credit for someone else's work. That was the post, and yeah, so I shared that into that group because we all know that group is of a certain disposition, and yeah, I thought it might be a laugh, and yeah, well, it was. I had a great time. I posted it the night before. It was approved the next morning. It seems I was out all day, and then I came back in later, and saw
you
that
saw the
yeah,
fallout.
all hell had broken loose.
Yeah, and I think I caused most of the hell. But
Some of it.
what really got me about one of the comments on there was about how you're lying about things and you're breaking the law and that, and you should be reported and that really,
Well,
really
my advice to anyone who
pissed me
thinks that
off.
is, well, my advice to anyone who thinks that is to ring the police.
Or the electoral commission, because there's nothing
Yeah, but
illegal.
who will? Fine.
How can you be breaking the law for telling the truth or showing the truth? Now, I pointed out that as we've discussed before on our first live stream about putting yourself forward for councillor now before the election, you have to put the word prospective councillor. Now, our lovely mayor, Mayor Spanswick, put down he is the candidate, not prospective, and that which is against election rules. And I pointed out, well, that's against election rules. Stop being hypocritical and call him out as well and say he should be reported. Then somebody said to me, well, why don't you report him? Because I said, well, because really it doesn't give... I don't really give a toss.
There's a lot of these rules that are hard. They do seem very petty, but they are new rules nevertheless. But they do seem petty, but they're very, But I think you were right to point it. If someone says, "Oh, well, they're breaking rules," I say, "Well, yes, so was he."
Yeah, but
both rules may be petty, but yeah, what's good for one is good for the other.
I noticed what Mayor Spanswick put a week ago, and I brought it up on a post and said, "Oh, the mayor breaks the rules" and things like that, because I don't really care. I think it's a petty rule at this point. It doesn't mean anything, and what they're going to do, stop him from standing because of it? No. And we know this. The ombudsman, we've seen many times, when you make a complaint or something, when there's genuine evidence of wrongdoing and things like that, they don't really want to know it anyway. They don't really care and say, get on with it, toughen up, don't they?
No, my sense about the ombudsman, we're talking about two different things. There's electoral law, and actually, it's not the electoral commission, or I guess they may have a role to play, but in the sort of things you're talking about, or the person who was coming up with those wild allegations, that's a matter for the police. So by and large, some of the electoral things are actually electoral offences. Usually only come into force during the pre-election period or the election period, which is pre-election would have been. What I mean is the election periods from when the candidates are official candidates. So there are things like intimidation of candidates. I can't remember the exact terminology, but you're not allowed to what might be libel. Yeah, what might be libel or cast aspersions over the character of the candidate. Now, if it's true, you're allowed to say it. But what might be considered libelous and therefore a civil matter in normal circumstances can become a criminal offence in election periods. So, for example, if you were to say, candidate X is a wife beater, and you have absolutely no evidence for that, well, you could probably expect a knock on the door from the constabulary, because that's an electoral offence. If you said, I think candidate X is a very rude man and I don't like the way he looks and he's got a bad sense of dress, then you're probably fine, yeah, because it's an opinion.
What's that about me?
If you sort of libel someone or you defame someone in an election period, then that is an offence, for example. And there's other things as well, but it's a matter for the police, and what you'll probably find is the police will really scratch their heads and have to consult with people to find the offence. But yeah, sorry, we've gone on a rabbit hole now. But I did see. I mean, I flicked through some of those comments, and I don't know quite what that guy was on about. But
it's like I think about. I've been. This is a classic one from our cabinet member for communities, that I've been brainwashed by BCI and I shouldn't believe the lies. I can see with my own eyes. I can read things and I can interpret things sometimes quite correctly. In my opinion, it's like things. It's like, yes, I can see Stuart Baldwin has done fantastic getting this scheme up for the refurbishments of parks throughout the county that are not part of asset transfers.
Yeah, none have been fixed yet, though, have they?
No, none have been fixed.
That was cheap. That was a cheap shot. Sorry, Luke.
Yes,
but
Martin,
if he was here, if he was on here instead of sniping from the sidelines, of course.
Yeah.
He said that he could have come back at me, couldn't he? But there you go. Sorry, no, there was a cheap shot.
But, I applaud it. That kind of doing better for the county, making the county better. The way, what I don't like is the way they. Oh, it's like when I commented. Yes, I did a long thing. So, well, I replied to somebody and said, "You don't. You defend them with our bed. You defend them with the pitch fees." And they said, "Oh, the pitch fees aren't even a thing anymore." Well, they still are. They've only deferred it. They've only delayed it. It come out after this election. I can guarantee within a year, if Labour are in charge, they will up those fees unless clubs take over these assets.
I don't know if you remember, Luke. Coity Hire, we wrote to the leader sometime in the last year, asking him, because we saw something on Twitter saying that fees had been protected or something. But we've got an interest expressed in Great Western Avenue and Litchard Park, or not Litchard, but Litchard Playfield, and so they bragged, as is their right, their political party. So they're gonna put their spin on things. They said, "Oh, no, all sports fields are protected because I can't remember exactly. I don't even know if there was because split pitch rises won't happen." So we, as a council, if you remember, wrote to them and said, "Can we therefore withdraw our expressions of interest because we no need to protect, And they came back and confirmed that they were very much still in force. That the 500% rise.
They're only delayed. I think the release last year was it's delayed with a view to abandoning the policy altogether of rating it. That's what it was. And then as the community council, as we were quite rightly, we were saying, well, we don't need to do this anymore. We don't need to help clubs protect what they're going to use. Could we withdraw our thing because it's no longer? And they came back, and as you said, they said, no, it's still very much a thing. It's still looking likely it will happen, which within a year after this election, it will happen if Labour are still in charge.
Well, if
that's what I said. If Labour is still in charge.
Sorry,
I even if the Tories put in charge, I don't think they won't go through. They won't. They will abandon it.
The Conservatives supported it. I think Lynn Walters, the Oldcastle councillor, said she was fully behind it, and she said words to the effect of, "We've been subsidising these for far too long." So if you vote Conservative, they're going to do the same thing.
But it's not fair, because I've heard a few of the other Labour Conservative councillors actually come out against it and saying this isn't right. We need to protect our sports, not our purse strings. at the end of the day on that, on things like that. We can
And
find
there,
them.
and there, Luke, is an example of why you will hold me to account because you came back at me.
Yeah.
So anyone out there who thinks you don't,
But I've got to admire, well, Lynn Walters and the other members of the Conservatives. I can't remember who it was. I think Tom Gifford was one of them who said he's not in favour of it, and he would probably, this was before he was a Senate member, so obviously at that point he would still have possibilities of being councillor. That if it came to Conservatives being in charge, he would be putting forward for it to be abandoned and got rid of. But Lynn Walters, fair enough. This is what I mean about speaking your mind in a party. This is great to see that Lynn Walters and Tom Gifford and others in the same party differ. Whereas in Labour, you don't see that at all. You don't see it at all. They have a message and they stick to that message. If anybody goes off that message, we've seen what happens. They get deselected. And that's what I hate about party politics, is you've got to toe our line, not the line of what your constituents want, not what you think is best for the county. And that's what I hate. And as I put in my post yesterday, I said, you think BCI are vicious, you go and look at the film, the documentary Tory Boy, and then you'll see what Labour councillors have done. Not in Bridgend. I'm not saying this is what they've done in Bridgend, but this was up in Sunderland, I believe it was. The leader of the council at the time, this was back in the 70s or 80s, she had just lost her son and she had just lost her husband. And it was a civic service, and it was only 2 weeks after she had buried both her son and her husband that the Labour councillors marched a coffin onto that civic celebration. How disgusting, despicable is that? You see things
I have seen that. I don't think it was that long ago. I think it was within the last 5 years or so, actually. So it wasn't ancient history.
No,
anyway.
there was another independent. There was an independent female councillor who they were harassing during the election. That because Tory Boy was 2011, I think, 2010 or somewhere around there.
Oh, sure. I know it's relatively recent. Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, people say, "Oh, well, he's a conservative," and that, but he wasn't. His family and him were Labour staunch through and through, and he got disillusioned with the Labour Party. I think we need to talk about other things because people are switching off. We've got now 2 viewers. Maybe I should start swaying.
Is it me? Shall I leave?
No, I think it's me. I think I've calmed down too much for them. But yeah, as I said to you the other week, I think it was last week after this the live stream last week. I said, I love this. I want to do this for a living. I know I can't do it for a living, Bridgend wise. It's not going to make any money because it's too small a thing. But I'm going to expand to Wales and globally, so hopefully I can get more views on YouTube, because you need to have 4,000 hours of video watched and 1,000 subscribers before you start even be considered for the partnership program.
I tell you what, though, Luke. I mean, and I've said this. I think I've either said it online, on screen, or I've said it privately to you. No one locally is doing anything like what you're doing. Augie Bloggy's doing some great stuff. Owen Donovan, what a great guy! But he's not doing. Oh, God, bloody hell! I mean, amazing.
I'd love to have him on here.
What he's not doing is, well, yeah. I mean, he'd be fascinating. A wealth of information. But what he's not doing is this, and I just find it incredible that. More people aren't engaging with you from the political parties. I mean, fair play to Tom, and I did anybody of the Conservatives, I don't know, but fair play to Tom at least for coming and joining. And Ian did, well, he was a Lib Dem, but I just don't get it. I mean, and you'd think if you have a passion for local democracy, which you assume that all all of the councillors should have because
Yeah,
they're councillors. So therefore, you'd think they're passionate about what they do. You'd think you'd want to come on, and if you had a strength of belief in your argument and strength of belief in your ability to communicate and to express your arguments and defend your arguments in the face of a strong challenge, then you'd think you'd want to be on here. You'd want to be on here, but I don't know why they don't. And this goes back to that Facebook thing. Um, the, Labour in particular, let's just say what it is. They seem to have an army of minions. Let's just
yeah,
call them that, being polite. They don't think they will sometimes engage directly. The conversation will usually go like this. I think you're wrong. Someone will come back at them. They'll flounder on the detail or lose the argument, then say, anyway, I've had enough of this. I bid you good night. You watch. You go, they do that.
yeah.
And
I've
then
had
they
that a
leave.
couple of times.
Yeah, I don't know whether I wouldn't be at all surprised if it's a script.
I, I,
How to back out of an argument. And if I'm being a bit pointy now, come on here and tell me I'm wrong.
it's like
Anyway, I don't give a monkey's. Or and then when that happens, then unleash the hordes of minions on you. And I could probably list them all. I could probably sit down and write it. It's like a kind of
it's
if you've
always
ever
the
been in a management meeting.
same
Oh, yeah,
ones,
it's like
isn't it?
bullshit. It's like bullshit bingo in a management meeting. You can tick off the phrase. We can say, "All right, they've come along. They've said their bit. Here they are. Well, I'm only waiting for them. Bingo! I've won the prize." And that's what they do. Well, instead of doing that, you have offered them, all of us, an opportunity to come on here. And I wasn't prepared to do this tonight, but I've come on. We know there'll be others watching because we know after we did the first live stream when it was Leanne and Steve, me and you. We know that I said something about if we would give the officers 100 days to bring out
Yeah,
their dead, and if they didn't, and we found out something that they'd hidden from us, then I think my words were they'd be toast. Then we soon got out there, didn't it? So we know they watch this. So don't be voyeurs. Don't look from the side. Don't just look on while others enjoy the fun. Have some confidence and join in yourself. That's my advice to them.
I know there are quite a few on there, and I argue with a lot of them. But there are a couple of them I quite respect because quite often you do leave things cordial at the end. But there's some on there that no matter what you do to calm it down, no matter what you say, they won't have it. And I know you don't agree, and I know others won't agree because they've had run-ins, and I will mention names here. I've had run-ins with Chris Harding, but we have had decent conversations as well, and we've had a mutual respect at points for each other. And I had a go at Chris Harding yesterday, and I really had a go. And I haven't looked at the replies. I'm sorry, Chris, if you're watching, because I know you mentioned that you saw something last week about BCI. So I'm hoping you're watching. But I do have respect for Chris. I know a lot of people at BCI may not, and that. It's the same with Martin Martin Jones. I think Martin Jones. I can't. 2 seconds. I can find out. Yeah, Martin L. Jones. Martin Jones helped me out in a tough situation, and he did something really nice for me, even though politically we think different. 2 seconds, Martin. Do you want to talk for a second because I've got another councillor who's asking to join.
All right. Is it one of the ones who I accused of being a voyeur?
No, no, but
No, that'd be good.
I will send the link to this councillor now on Messenger. Right, get a copy of the link.
It'd be good to well, and it's like a surprise. It's like Noel's house party. We just don't know who's going to be at the door now, do we?
No, and
Better not
this
be
is
Mr.
what
Blobby.
and this is what I like, and this is what I want people to do. If they got something to say, they want to come and say it, even if you're Um, not standing as counsel. If you want to comment in the comments, do it. If you want to come on and there's something really passionate that you really want answers to, and you want to question people directly, like Martin, like Stephen, like anybody I have on here, then please feel free. I'll send you the link. You can come and join, and you can ask them whatever questions you want. You can ask me whatever I want, because that's what we're here for. And we're not going to say, oh no, we don't want to speak to you because we don't like you or you're one of them. We're going to put our argument across, whether you accept the argument from Martin or from others. That's up to you. But we
I
can
tell you what, you go back to
put our views
that whole
across.
Facebook thing, and a lot of the sort of animosity, and I wouldn't say abuse. That's a very sort of pejorative term, but that sort of thing you get from certain quarters, Labour quarters, if you like. They don't like it
No,
because we're taking it to them. And you talked about that Tory boy film, and I know, and I would like to think that that sort of thing goes on around here. But the parties, it's not politics, unfortunately, and local politics in particular, is a contact sport. Yeah,
yeah.
it's not. It is, and for many, many years, one party in particular has been the dominant party, that the All Blacks of Bridgend politics. And now
Well,
there are
20
people
throughout the
who have
last
realized,
26 years.
well, 26 years of BCBC, but a generation or two
Yeah,
before that. And I think people have realized now that actually, no, we're going to take them on at their own game, and we're going to be robust in the way we conduct ourselves, because we have and when I say we, I don't mean a BCI party. I mean those who stand up to seek election as independents, and who have found common cause with other independents, have realised that actually we can work together, and we can be as robust as the Labour Party, and if necessary, the Conservative Party. And the one thing I've quoted to people a number of times is the line. The line from The Untouchables, the Sean Connery line. If he
yes.
brings a knife, you bring a gun. He puts one of yours in the hospital.
You
You
put
put
one
one
of
of
these
his
in
in
the
the morgue.
morgue. I watched
That's
that
the
the other
Chicago
day.
way. Well, this is the Bridgend way. Yeah, we will be as hard as we need to be, because we have serious business to be done. There is change to be delivered, and unfortunately, if it requires elbows to be out and knees to be raised, that will be done, because unless you win, you can't deliver change, and you will need to be robust to deliver that change in the place that we hope to run. So I
Yeah.
make no excuses for being hard. It is a contact sport, and we will be hard. Will we be unpleasant? No, I don't think so. But I think everything that BCI has ever said or changed from Gen before has been based in truth. And the truth might be taken and used to batter people with, but it is no less true.
No,
And
it's
if
not.
there are found to be things that aren't true, then I put my hands up and say no, I'm not happy with that, because I believe if you come from a place of truth, then you can be hard, and that's that. Sorry, that's my sermon.
No, it's okay. It's like you admitted when we spoke last time, Martin, that 5 years ago you were quite antagonistic, and I think the way you put it is you lobbed grenades in and waited for them to go off and see what happened. But it was a time when change for Bridgend, as it was then. We've evolved since then. Yes, back then you probably say, yeah, we were independent, close to a loose kind of party, but we were independents. But you were lobbing grenades. You and Steve. Steve said he let his thumbs do the talking, and you fully admit that. You've calmed down a lot since then, and Steve has, and they don't like it. And so I think at the moment I'm quite probably the most antagonistic person who's
Oh, you're a nightmare,
associated
Luke. You're an absolute
associated
nightmare.
with BCI at the moment
On
because
that note, Luke. On that note, do you mind if I step away from the PC for 5 minutes, and there's another counsellor who might want to join in and continue a conversation. The only thing is she hasn't she hasn't got all she younger makeup on. So that's what she gets me.
I
But,
can't
but,
swear in
but I
front
need
of
a
a
copy of
lady like that. No, come on, Martin.
yeah, no, just stop you swearing.
Like
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
I
You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, I just thought I'd pop on for a moment, if you don't mind, while Martin gets a drink. I've been hearing some terrible things that you've been receiving some quite hateful
Well,
messages.
this was a couple of weeks ago
And
when I said I was feeling down, and I got a message saying, "Well, why don't you just kill yourself and get it over with and stop having these your shit opinions and the shit counsellors on your show? Would be better off without them." So, and sorry, I'm just trying to forward the link to.
I'm just astounded. I'm just disgusted by that. My son today, he's 12 years old. He
Yeah.
lost a football match. So he finished third in the league by 1 point. Today,
Ooh.
since he's finished, has had messages from the local academy team who beat him today, telling him, laughing at him. He's been bullied, saying how rubbish he is. He's 12.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not happy about it, but I expect that from children. I do not expect grown-up adults to behave in such an appalling, abysmal, disgusting way. When I stood for election 5 years ago, I've lived in the village since 2004. I've organised so many charity events, raised tens of thousands of pounds, given my time to so much, and I've been a member of the community. And yet the tactic that was used against me was against my, I have to say, the Conservative person who stood against me came and knocked the door and said, good luck. And that was that. He didn't attack me, anything. So I have to take my hat off to him. The other independents sent out their flyer just slagging me off about how awful I was. And then the Labour candidate was knocking people's doors saying how horrible I am. Having never met me, never had anything to do with me,
No.
or knew anything about the time and the commitment and the effort I put in for my community, it's just nastiness. It makes my
Oh
blood boil. But in the 5 years I've been a councillor, I have to say I don't expect anything less.
no.
Sometimes it's embarrassing. My 9-year-old, well, even the 3-year-olds in her school act far more grown up, far more responsible, and know what's right from wrong more than certain individuals. And I hope those individuals their heads in shame. They won't, because snakes are snakes. They will never be anything but a snake. And I'm sorry you've had to go through this, Luke. You are a lovely man. You are so kind. And I am so, so angry. But I am here and I will support you. And if those people who are emailing you think I'm a shit counsellor, I've got a 100% record. I'm in the top 10 of referrals. I get out there. I'm contactable 24 hours. I don't just turn up for photographs with my selfie stick when it's election time. I'm out there all the time. You might think I'm shit. I know I'm not. And the people I stand up for know I'm not. So come on. I welcome you all to come and take me on anytime. Come on here. We'll have a chat. We'll do it in person. But do not pick on people and message people who you know are suffering with mental health. Because just think, it could be you. It could be one of your family members. And I said last time I was on, be kind, because on social media, everyone's being kind. Everyone's changed their profile pictures to a different cause. Be kind, support people. You know, humanity, we're there for each other. Well, start
Yeah.
following that, not just with your selfie stick. That's all I have to say. I'll let my
Oh
husband back now, but I'm
no,
raging.
no,
Sorry.
no. I love it. I like it when you for
I'll
some
just
reason.
pass him back over.
Right. I'm trying to get this counselor in, but
Hey,
There you are.
for some reason the link's not working for him. Right. Sorry, Martin. Type into this counsel. Oh, I hate my keyboard. It keeps deleting everything rather than the one letter I want. Right. There we go. No, it's like Amanda said. It wasn't the fact So I can handle it, and I think I was just a little down when I was down when I said that, and I think that's what affected me more. But last year, when they had a go at my son, um, Amanda for president, Martin. um, it's when they had a go at my son. That's when I really, really get my goat up. It's no wonder he's autistic if he's sick as shit like you.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Um,
yeah, but that's fine. That's fine. But 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 having a go at the Labour candidate in the election last year because she was seen everywhere having selfies. Oh, that's
yeah,
abhorrent misogyny. Yeah,
yeah,
but it's fine. It's fine to have a go at you and your son.
and
I mean, look, it goes with the
it
territory for me. It goes with the territory for Amanda. It's unfortunate, but it does. But
yeah,
that doesn't make it right, yeah. Doesn't make it right. And you know, just don't go after people's kids. Don't go after people when they've said that they you know you have. I hate using the word mental health issues, but if you say you're suffering with stress or depression, oh yeah. So yeah, I tell you what I'll do. I'll go after him.
yeah.
I could swear now, but I won't. Yeah.
No, I praise if somebody does well, whether they're Labour, whether they're Conservative, or whether they're Independent. It's like Sarah Murphy, the other, is doing a big push in getting this school travel report, trying to get it published. And I praised her for that, and I think it's brilliant. And I've sent a message to her office a couple of weeks ago now saying I'd love to talk to her about this, do an interview with her, or come on a live stream and just talk about solely this, nothing else, that subject, because she did fantastic work in trying to get it published. And I've had nothing back. Nothing back. At
When I
least,
was first elected, you know, you give them the benefit of the doubt. Carwyn Jones seems
yeah,
entirely reasonable. When I was first elected, wrote to him, amongst others, about Harold Spencer. Never a word. Never a word. Not a word. Wrote to Madeline Moon. Did I have a letter back or did I have an email? I had something anyway. So there was a degree of recognition.
mm,
It was of no use. And this is the problem. You see, I don't know Sarah Murphy at all. She seems
no, not me,
she seems
really.
very pleasant. I don't. I doubt this. I doubt the substance. If I'm being quite honest, but I'll say I doubt. I'm prepared to be proven wrong. But I think she's. I mean, what a job she's got. Yeah, so she's going to go
Yeah,
and do what she needs to do and go and front up and you know play the civic role that comes with being an AM. And then you got. We just the trouble is you just look at it and go, well, she won't join you in your live chat. She won't do this, don't do the other, and then tarnished by the behaviour of the local lot. I don't know. I mean, it must be very difficult. Ooh, hang on, I pressed a button. I don't know what's going on.
no,
It must
that
be
was
very
me.
difficult if you could be
I
a
did that.
reasonable. Oh no, yeah. It must be. I don't know. I mean, it just seems to be. She comes across as being reasonable. She comes across as being, you know, a normal member of the human race. But yeah, I don't envy her. I don't envy her having to sort of swim in the pool that she has to swim in.
No,
So, why else is
I,
joining it? Luke? Are they joining, or are they just?
sorry.
Are they going
No, for some reason it was Councillor Spiller wanted to join in, and I've
to? Ah,
sent
right.
him
Yeah.
the link a couple of times, and for just some reason it's not letting him in, and I don't know why. Because you got him fine with the link, I'm guessing, and I sent him the link, and it's just not coming on properly. It's just
Yeah.
not
Right. Well,
coming on.
so,
I'd love to have Ian in here. I like Ian. He's very very nice guy and very diplomatic. I think.
very experienced as well. I mean, we've been doing
Yeah,
this. It's what I've been doing since 2016. I think Ian's been plugging away at various things for some time before that, because I think
yeah,
Ian was involved with trying to protect the A&E
yes, he
in Prince,
was.
which is something that they're determined. They'll get rid of it one day. They're determined to do it, aren't they? This is,
Yeah,
I think, twice in the last 10 years they tried to get rid of it.
yeah. They'll keep doing it, and they keep switching it between health boards as well. Bridge end between health boards is Cumtaff, then Bro Morganog, and then Cumtaff again, and it just keeps switching. Why can't they just stick to one health board? And yeah, it's silly. Um, anyway,
So what's
it's like
next? What's next on your hit list then, Luke?
It was the Facebook one that really got me. It's like, oh, we have another guest and he's here. I'll bring him in.
Oh,
Councillor
Oh, there we
Ian
go.
Spiller. There we
Oh,
go.
I tell you what. Oh, I like that. I like the last screen. It was a bit like the beginning of Dynasty.
Do,
There we go.
the only problem
Oh,
is
that's
I'm
Dallas.
off screen, Martin. So I've kind of vanished. My face is going that
No,
way.
look, Luke's in
Right.
charge. Luke's in charge. But you
What I'll
arrange
do-
it as you want.
I'll-
yeah.
You would not
That'll
believe
be
the
better.
hassle
We
I've
can see.
taken to get into there, Luke. I tell you.
Yes, well, the messages were coming back and forth. And
Well, in fact, I've actually joined you on my phone, and I found
the phone
really
works.
good. I found a really good use for lateral flow tests. Well, the boxes anyway.
Have you?
Yeah, because I'm currently using it to prop my phone up so I can talk to you. Because otherwise, I'll be holding my phone and looking a bit silly.
Well, all those restrictions are ending a week today, aren't they? So everything's coming away, but the increase of positive tests are going up again. So what's going to happen? Is it going to be pulled out last minute? But anyway, that's a national issue, and I don't deal with national issues here much often. Yeah, I've, as I said, I've been angry because the way I've been treated, and we won't go into specifics, but 5 years ago, you were treated very much worse than I was, weren't you, Ian? 5 years ago, as I recall.
But 5 years ago seems like a lifetime ago now, Luke. As I said to you before, but we all have our we all have our trials and tribulations in life.
Yeah.
And you know, whether people put it out there and let people know what they're going through, or whether they keep it all inside and don't. You know, everybody is going through something.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the big danger is certainly it's a conversation I was having earlier on today, is that if we just take council meetings over the last 2 years, they've all been done online. People have forgotten the basic communication skills of actually, you know, having a bit of empathy and just talking to people and relating to them. Now, just bear in mind, you know, we're talking about elected councillors. Actually, that's happened to the public as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have worked from home, so that they've gone to work on a computer. They talk to people the way that we're talking to them now. They've forgotten to read body language. They've forgotten to really take note of whether somebody is, you know, is happy with the way in which you say something. Now, couple that then with typing on Facebook, and I picked up a couple of names that you dropped in earlier. And actually, I've had some great interactions with a number of people online, you almost have to rise above it, because at the end of the day, in our roles, people are going to like what we do, people are going to not like what we do, and certainly at this precise moment, this is what we call silly season, isn't it? When everybody decides that they want to attack you, whether they agree with you or not in certain situations. So, you know, I just I hope for the next 46 days,
Something like that.
you can manage to get through it with a nice smile, Luke.
I'll try. I'll have my days where I'm thinking that, but I don't normally get angry. But this week I was just angry. Whether it was the fact that I poisoned myself with mushrooms, or the fact my medication is doing this, I don't know. But I started on Facebook, or back on Facebook properly on Thursday, and it wasn't even properly, it was just looking at things here and there. But then yesterday, and it might be coupled with the anger of Wales losing as well. Well done, Italy.
Look, I was in a wedding yesterday. I didn't see the game, therefore, in my mind, it didn't happen. Okay, so what I didn't
I was going to
see
say
doesn't
my
happen.
Facebook feed was very, very quiet, Martin. I was pretty sure there were no internationals yesterday.
No,
well,
in
my
didn't play yesterday.
in my fugue state, I'm sure I saw Italy win, and it was well deserved by Italy. Wales were awful. Italy played well, and I've got to say, it's the first time I've ever seen a second row get penalised for offside from a scrum. Alan Wynne-Jones was penalised for being offside at the scrum, and he was in the middle of the scrum.
I think that just goes to show what a legend he is, that he's capable of doing such a
He could
thing.
be offside from the middle of the scrum. He's a lock. He's got a number 8 up his arse and a flanker, and his head up a prop in the hooker's arse. I'm just a thing. But I saw that yesterday and I thought, nobody else is commenting on the fact that he was called offside at the scrum. And they clearly said number 5 because they went on about how Alan Wynne-Jones should be above that now. We're getting 150 caps and Dylan Hartley, who I don't understand why Dylan Hartley was commentating on Welsh Match Mind, but he was pretty good. I've got to give him that. And I like Brian Moore, so maybe that's why. They were saying, oh, he's above that. We shouldn't penalise him anymore because it's Alan Wynne-Jones. So it's clearly Alan Wynne-Jones who was penalised, and it was clearly the referee said for offside. I've been told by my AR, he said, but it was coming from a scrum. And I thought, how can you be offside as a second row from a scrum? And nobody else saw that. Nobody else picked up on it. It's strange. There were some strange decisions yesterday by the referee. I'm not saying that contributed to it, the loss, but Wales deserved to lose. We weren't good enough. We didn't finish the chances, and Italy deserved to win. And that's all I can say about that yesterday. So maybe that's what I got angry about. But they were saying about, oh, they didn't plant that exact tree then, so what's the problem? They didn't plant any tree. That's what the point of the post was. It's not the fact that they planted a different tree. It's the fact they didn't plant any tree.
I think the post had 2 points, didn't it? The first point was, right, okay, it might seem very petty, but if you can't believe this, then what can you believe them about? Yeah, so there was a kind of small point to prove a larger point. The other point was just to wind them up. Yeah, and that's what politics. That's what happens in politics, and it bloody did. And as I said, I played rugby when I was younger. I work in the construction industry, which is not for the faint-hearted. And people have spent, certainly all my adult life and my teenage years, winding me up. And you've got to learn to not to bite. So when someone takes a thought as, oh, they didn't really plant that tree, what the Labour Party should have done is gone,
no, but we're the ones who initiated it.
We're not bite. Well, of course, the more they bite, the more, sorry, I've just given away the secret. God's sake. It's a clear wind-up, yeah? They just buy it hook, line, and sinker.
It was, but I will say, I'm not taking out my anger and stress on people of Bridgend only. I've been going around different hubs around the country, and what I see as a norm is, in a lot of areas at the moment, Conservatives are very quiet. They seem to be quiet all over. There's 1 or 2 candidates that are very profiled on Facebook, and they're very pushing and very thing. Some of them sound fantastic, and some of them sound crap. Same with Plaid Cymru. In certain areas, they're really thinking this is going to be. These are the areas that are more Welsh speaking, things like that. They're very prominent and very visible. But I see it a lot that people say something and against a Labour candidate or the Labour Council or Labour councillors in general in these forums and in these hubs, and there's a group that just descends and attacks in every area, and then when people argue back or question back, as Ian Spiller sent me Ian Williams, sent me an article yesterday about the Spectator. This is a thing. They attack. When people argue back, they go, oh, woe is me. Oh, aren't you bullying me? And things like that. And that is what I see happening at the moment. Not all of them do it. There are some who don't. And I won't speak about one in particular from what's gone on this week. and that, because I don't speak ill of people who can't defend themselves at times. But there are
Do you know,
people out
Luke?
there.
I think the thing is you want to try and engage these people in positive debate or some form of debate, where they will actually talk to you about policies and they'll actually try and defend their decisions. Unfortunately, when they won't engage in that type of conversation and then they want to use other people to argue their point, it makes it very, very difficult to do. From my point of view, I think my ward's going to be very hotly contested by 3 Labour councillors, or candidates, should I say, not councillors. Let's hope not. And 3 Conservative candidates. I'm doing it now. I'm trying to get 6 councillors into that ward. You look at it and you just kind of wonder sometimes where these people actually appear. They're so keen to work in the community. They're so keen to represent the people. Yet they can only do that in the 6 weeks before election periods. They don't do it in the 5 years before. And I find it really, really disingenuous. Really, really, it's one of these things that really irks me. Is look, we can all go out and we can. There's some great work done by people that volunteer in our community. They do lots of different things. Whether that's helping out at the local food banks, whether that's doing litter picks. And I mean not just for photos. I mean actually doing the litter picks when people aren't watching, and not taking a selfie of yourself doing it. There's some great people doing work every day in the communities. Yet these people turn up 6 weeks before an election and go, I'm active in my community and I'm here to represent you. Right, okay.
Yeah,
I'll tell you the other one along those lines is, and I've seen both parties, with respect to the Lib Dems and Plaid. I haven't seen much of them, but I've seen Labour and Conservative do this. And it's the line that goes something like, I'm keen to hear, and they live in the ward. They live in the ward. I say, I'm keen to hear from you and the issues that affect you in this ward. You go, would you live in this ward? And in these 2 cases, they've been incumbent councillors for at least 5 years. I'm thinking, well, if you don't know what the issues are, why the hell are you standing?
Well,
You must know what the issues are. I can list you a list of things that we need to be done in Coity and Coity Higher. Obviously
Martin,
keen to hear more.
We've had the same issues, haven't we? I mean, we look at crossovers. So, we were talking about road safety ourselves the other day, where there's links, different roads, but we have similar issues. But the issues that have affected people, residents in my area, have been the same. They've been the same since I first got elected in 2012, because the borough councillors have done absolutely nothing about them. Right, so you've got the A48. That's been ongoing since 2016 when Rhys Rubery lost his life. The good news is £390,000 was spent on a bit of bush clearance, 4 signs and a bit of paint. Excellent value for money, BCBC. Well done.
And a path where it wasn't needed. Don't forget that.
No, indeed. And actually, they've moved the sign, so it makes some of the situations even worse. You've then got the fact that over the last 20 years, Lallaston, Bryntyre and Merthyr Mawr ward has taken 3,000 houses out of 10,000, I think, roughly in the whole of Bridgend in that time. It's about to take another 2,000 houses. Now, you tell me, I'm pretty sure you were talking about the Sunnyside development earlier. Right, you tell me where the doctor's going to go then, because that's stalled. You can't get a doctor's appointment anywhere for love nor money very easily at the moment. And then where are they going to go to school? There are communities outside of Bridgend that actually the schools are underpopulated. They need the kids in there. But no, we want to pop it all in there. And then we've got the problem of adoption, which I know affects you. And is going to affect you for a long time yet to come if Broadlands is anything to go by, Martin. Where people are paying outrageous amounts of council tax and getting a 2nd class or even 3rd class service for what they're paying out for. It's ridiculous.
But as you said last time we spoke in on the interview, that you had a community council, a county councillor who wanted a bin by his house, had one put in, but then nobody's empty it.
Let's not forget
He
he is a very high powered cabinet member, and if he
was it one I talked about earlier.
I'm not going to name.
This is the same community councillor. No, sorry, this is the same cabinet member for regeneration, and him and his colleague were actively campaigning against the circus field being included in the LDP, to which he's responsible for. So the cabinet is collectively responsible for ultimately the LDP, and he's there campaigning against an element of the LDP that he doesn't like. Well, I presume, and I hope that he will continue this logic and soon start calling for his own resignation, because it's completely bloody mental. I'm going to campaign against the thing I'm. Yeah.
This is where you try and convince people that you're doing something when you're not actually doing anything, really, because ultimately, if they don't want it included, a cabinet member should be able to have a little bit of a push in the right direction, shouldn't he?
Yeah. Anyway, there was a couple of points through all your discussions that I wanted to talk about, and I think I forgot what they were. Because my
I do have to thank you, Tony, because I saw you in earlier, and I had to excuse myself and leave because I was falling asleep. I was so tired.
I was amazed you're actually up now.
Well, I was literally falling asleep, and I thought, I'll dial into Luke's thing now. Dial in, listen to me. I'll plug in. What do we call it? Whatever we do to YouTube, yeah. And I'm full of it now. It's a complete second wind. So thanks for that.
I can't remember what it was. Some good points I had to make, and I completely forgot, because Ian said something. I thought, yeah, I want to go up. I want to continue on that. And then Martin came in and I thought, yeah, I can wait. And he said something. I thought, I want to say something on that. And then Ian came back in. I thought, I'll wait. Now I've completely forgot what they were. But
I took a wander round, right, and this is the bit that makes you laugh. Over the last 10 years, I've probably written to 4 different people in Persimmon to try and get them to hand bits of Broadlands over for adoption, and I lost a load of emails the other day. So I've actually got one of the residents in those particular streets that tends to bombard these people as well. So we were just comparing notes and wandering around, and you sat there, and everything has to be up to standard for BCBC to take it on if Persimmon offer it for adoption.
Yeah.
Pavements are collapsing. There's a dead tree. Tony Barrow and I were out there, and I mean, we're not tree inspectors, but what appeared to be a very, very dead tree, and when I mean a dead tree, it was a big, big dead tree, and you sat there looking at it, thinking the winds that we had last weekend, that's going to come down on somebody's house if you're not careful. So I've got a string of things to deal with Persimmon tomorrow, and I'm hoping the same person is going to be still in the job role, because every time I write to them, I then have to find out who is actually in the role again.
Yeah. Anyway, don't come in, Martin. I remember what it was that Ian said earlier that triggered something. It was about medical services and doctors and things like that. Why is it so? And we talked about this before about doing joined up thinking. There's NHS are responsible for putting in GP surgery, and if you've got a large housing development like Park Derwin, like Broadlands, you're going to need doctor surgeries. So NHS should be brought in with it and say, for this to go ahead, we need A, B, and C. Are you willing to help us? We will help part fund this and things like that. It's like with Park Derwin, they expanded telecoid surgery in Sal to cope with the extra. Why not? Instead of paying
I've seen the argument.
and the doctors there.
I've seen the argument recently, and of course it's the typical BCBC agenda, Labour. I have to say Labour because I feel a bit with the Bush. There's a very, the defeatist sort of attitude that they have. Is yeah, but we're not responsible for health. Now I need to check the planning regulations and planning law because I got a broad appreciation, but I don't know the detail. You couldn't, if Welsh Water objected, for example, to a development because the sewage treatment system wasn't up to the job. Now they would have an obligation to make it up the job, but you couldn't go beyond certain houses until the sewage system was sufficient. Well, and there would be a bar, and you could say, well, I'm sorry, we can't grant you permission until these conditions are met, and one of those is the sewage system. Well, why can't that be the same for health or education? Now, there could well be that there's a very good reason, and I'm hands up. I don't know it inside out, but rather than helping them do it, they could then say, no, you can't do it. And then that would put pressure onto those other bodies to put the services in place. But there's of course a broader picture about why should health and the rest of it all be so separate anyway, and then there's a whole larger picture which says, well, why are we bothering with these sort of city deal sort of setups and which is kind of halfway between a council and the Welsh government? Why shouldn't we be Welsh government be expending effort and saying we'll have a single health and social care system which will be managed at Welsh level, and we'll leave the councils get on with everything else. So I think there's a much larger piece going on there about joining things up. But in terms of the infrastructure, I think there should be a bar on construction. There should be a bar on construction. Say, well, actually, no. There are hospital places for 60,000 residents. There are the dentist places for the same, and therefore we can't go beyond that until that capacity is in place. That would seem to be reasonable to me.
Well, yeah. Look at the pandemic is a classic example. BCBC had to work with the local health authorities in putting the services together. Why is it only because we have a pandemic that they have to do that? You have Section 106 money set aside to put schools in, like they had in Quoty. They had to build a new school, and Section 106 money goes in towards that. And why not part of that for health? Saying you want to be a developer, you want to make millions here, you give us a little bit more back in return. Give us a school and give us proper health facilities. Just build them as part of the deal, a medical centre, and the health board will then say, we've got the facilities there, we don't have to buy them from.
I think it's important, though, to distinguish between what BCBC can do and what would need changes in regulations and law to do. However, I think BCBC and I should be more vocal in lobbying for those changes where they don't have the power necessary.
They should also be a lot more proficient in arguing for things on 106 agreements. I mean, unfortunately, they're not particularly good at it. It's probably the best way of putting it. Morgan's Meadow's just been put in, bizarrely enough, in my ward. It actually feels like it should be in Kevin Glass, but based on where it was on the old field layout, it's actually in mine. Actually, that they've not thought about the fact that people are going to use the roads which are already really, really dilapidated, going down into Bryntyre into the shops. Now, actually, if they'd looked at that, they could have got some developers' money to upgrade certain facilities there. And actually, there's a lot to be thought about, which going into Parkview and past Bryntyre and Lowiston Community Centre, of actually putting some traffic calming measures in there just to put people off of using them as rat runs.
Yeah.
But see, that needs forward thinking and forward planning. And actually, I think right across the borough, and we don't just have to look at my ward, you can look at it everywhere. Everything seems to be very reactionary.
Yeah.
So we don't think, right, well, what's going to be the knock-on effect of us doing that? And let's make sure all of that is dealt with at the same time.
I work in the water sector, and at the moment that's perhaps not particularly popular because of some of the sort of adverse press we had in the autumn. But the way the water sector works in 5-year cycles, and essentially you have to. There's regulation in the past, the Urban Wastewater Directive and the rest of it. But there are certain things that a water company must achieve in 5 years' time, and that's down the number of the amount of water that's leaks through broken pipes, or it might be the number of spills that untreated spills and so on and so forth. And you put your business plan together, and the water regulator, Ofwat, then allows you. They say how much above inflation. It's called a K number. How much above inflation you can charge people for your water, and that's basically how water bills are set. But the point is, as a result of that, you have a 5-year, what they call AMPs, asset management plans, and the company has usually different names, but essentially a director of asset management who looks at these things and says, what is growth likely to be? What do we want to achieve in 5 years? And sets, and that plan is then set out, and we develop it in accordance with that. And I'd like to see some of that rigor applied. And look, don't get me wrong. I mean, the water companies are not the paragon of virtue by any means, but that we should be looking at 20-year plans cut down into 5-year cycles, and we should be planning ahead. And I don't see any evidence really that BCBC are doing that. Okay, we've seen a little bit about the town centre master plan and that now, but I'd like to get the cabinet member for regeneration and just get him with a blank bit of paper and say, right, here is Bridgend. All right, won't give a blank bit of paper. I'll give him a map of Bridgend and a few pens and say, right, just explain it all to me. Explain what's going on. What is my stake? What is my stay going to look like? What's the purpose? So what are we going to do? Is Pencoed a town now, or is it not a town? And how does is Connelly the equivalent of Pencoed? Are we going to have how does that work? And what's his strategy for Porthcawl? Is it a tourist destination, or is it a residential area? Just explain it all to me. And I don't think they can. I don't think there's that one master plan that everyone could say how this is how it all hangs together and this is how we're going to service it. I defy them to do that, because I think BCBC's big problem is that they're highly, highly, highly reactive. I won't say responsive, reactive. Their problem. I was bloody hell, we didn't see that coming. We built 2,000 houses and now they haven't got schools. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, it's like every.
The word you're looking for, Martin, is lack of vision.
I think every 10 years they have to do an LTP, don't they? Is it every 10 years? Why not? They have to, in that LTP, they have to identify where housing can go and where commercial can go. Why not, as part of an LTP, if a developer is to build on such and such a land with X amount of houses, 1,000 or 2,000 houses, because you're talking at least 4,000 people then, that before any development can occur, a plan has to be put in for services such as a school, such as medical, such as even the smallest thing like a bus route. Because look, Coity still isn't served by a bus route, and yet it's got a few thousand people now.
I think the issue, Luke, is actually some of that is taken into account, but it's then what actually happens when the developers negotiate. Because developer, let's call a spade a spade. A developer is a business that's looking to make as much money for doing as little as possible. Right, so BCBC put in their LDP, which covers all of their various health and well-being and active leisure routes and so on and so forth, which includes schools and education and shops. And the developer comes in and they go, well, you're going to pay for that. And they have a big legal team that goes, actually, well, we'll give you a bit of money for that, but we don't really fancy doing this. And that's what actually happens. It's the case of who blinks first. And, I can show you the original plan for Broadlands. I'm sure there's probably one for Park Derwin. And that plan looks nothing like what we've got in Broadlands. Right, there was a community centre, there was a doctor's surgery, there were actually plans for 2 schools at one point. And, actually, what did we end up with? Well, we ended up with a business owner owning most of the land. We've ended up with some shops, thankfully, some really good shops up there now. We've ended up with a school, which is oversubscribed, which is actually now not oversubscribed, I believe, because they changed all of the catchment areas. And we've ended up with no community centre. What we've got is a bit of wasteland in private ownership where a community centre should be.
I know what we had, you see, instead of that. So at least you've got a bit of wasteland. What we had in Coity was money for community centre and money for school. And then, and I don't think you can blame the developer for this. The blame falls squarely at the feet of BCBC, who said, "Oh, hang on, if we add the two together and say that the community can use one of the rooms in the school, then that is now the community centre." So the school has an obligation. I think it's an obligation. I think that's the right word. Yeah. So I think they have an obligation
They do.
to
Yeah.
give over the community room to the community. However, it's not widely advertised, and the community council, for example, don't use that community room because it costs an arm and a leg. It costs a bloody fortune because you've got to have the caretaker to open up, and he's got to be on the premises while we're there, and the rest of it. So it's actually a community room that's almost impossibly expensive to use. So that's so it's not just the developers. I mean, yeah, the developers. You're right. It's their job to make money. They've got shareholders. They have a duty to maximise their profits. It is enshrined in law. But BCBC play fast and loose with the money too. Another interesting one, though, and we can't blame the officers. You might remember this, Luke. There was a Wales and West development in Brackler a couple of years back. An officer said, "You must provide a play park," and I won't name names. And councillors at Wales and West came in with a counter that instead of providing the play park, they'd use the land to squeeze a couple more houses in exchange for £20,000 to be put towards some improvements to other play parks. And councillors, Labour councillors, and the one for Brackler, current mayor, I think he proposed it, actively overrule officers. So there's now no play park. I think BCBC have had the £20,000, but there's no evidence that it's ever been spent. So there's a lot of fun and games goes on with the 106 money that does get. And let's not forget, of course, remember the Brackler Park and Ride station, car park. Let's not forget that. That was that 2018. Or was it 2017? It was certainly early in this count.
It was big part of their. It was big part of the general election campaign for the area as well.
Yeah, they built a car park for Brackler Station, which will never. Well, it's never going to be used, is it? I know you were told. Back to your point about negotiation here, they've told, "Oh well, if we hadn't built the car park that no one will ever use, then we'd have lost the money." Or you could have spoken to the developer and see they would cut you a deal. How about that?
It's much easier to waste public money, Martin.
Oh God, it is, and we've got the elections coming up, and I've spoken to Martin about this. There's so much work that we've done in Coity, and I'm proud of all that work we've done. All the councillors have done their bit in that, and there's so much still to do. And it is definite that I could stand again. But I'm in two minds because I want to do this, and I want to remain kind of impartial. And when you're a councillor, you have to err on the side of caution when you say things. And I don't want to be limited too much in what I can say. So I'm still at full debate whether I will stand or not. I know last year I said I definitely wouldn't. I don't done that, but it's like we're still on this. Are we taking over these assets, Richard Field or Pendray Fields? We're still looking for allotments for a new piece of land for allotments, and there's so much that's coming or could be coming to Coity. I think even this week there was some news on Heel Spencer footpath, wasn't there, Martin?
Yeah, I think Amanda and I have got different views on how positive it is, but Amanda says it's positive. So
Who are
As
you
you
to
just saw,
disagree?
I'm not exactly.
Well,
But
we
there is
remember
movement
last
at
time
the
that
end
there
of the
was
day.
positive news for that, wasn't there? There was actually money for a footpath
Yeah,
that actually went somewhere else.
there was pretty much, and we have worked very hard on it, and the fact that we're still talking about it is positive. To be fair, that it hasn't been dismissed. So
Yeah, but it's some positive. It's better than what we've had for the last 2-3 years, where we've done a lot of work for them. So we don't know who owns the land. We can't find out. And our clerk did a fantastic job and found out who owns the land, and it turned out BCBC owned most of it.
yeah, you
Or-
might have missed that, Ian. We had a situation where BCBC said, "Well, we can't do this, we can't do that," and even if we could do all of those things, we don't know who owns the land. Well, it turns out they do. Anyway,
and then when we
You
sorted
could have
that,
gone and built a big fence on that and claimed that in 10 years' time, Martin. I mean,
well, it was quite funny because we did all that, and then they came back with, "Oh, there's problems with drainage now." It was just excuse after excuse after excuse, and it's something the community council has been fiercely fighting for the last 5 years, and I'll give it to every member of that community council. They're all in agreement with it. Labour, Lib Dems, Independents, all of us, we all agree that something needs to be done, and it's not moving quick enough to be done.
here's a question for Ian now, if you don't mind, Luke. I mean, every
Carry on.
town community council seems quite different, and Coity, I think, once it was established, I mean, we had a majority after the election, which was slightly unexpected. But once it was established at the first AGM that we would use that majority to ensure that the chair was in the right hands, shall I say. Once that was sort of settled, we've all got on very, very well, and
yeah,
Richard, Luke's mentioned Richard Young was the cabinet member for 4 years for communities. So we had an opportunity there through Richard to have influence is the wrong word, but at least an insight into what was going on corporately within BCBC. And then we got a couple of Labour councillors. One a very good friend who came in, another who came in a year later, and then Cherie, who was I said I wasn't going to name names, I named all of them. Cherie was the borough member for Litchard, lost her seat at borough level, and has been a great community council. I think they've all played the role of either being just completely cooperative, and we've solved problems collaboratively, or where necessary offered being critical friends, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They said, no, I wouldn't do that because of this, and I think it's been a really good example of how we can all work together. I just wondered if I don't want to put it in the spot whether Lalliston is like, because I know for a fact that Bridgend Town Council is far from that.
but
It's
Bridgend
very fractious.
Town Council, I think, is far from that. I've been on two very, very different Lalliston community councils. 5 years ago, it was a very action-focused council with a lot of people doing things outside of meetings. This 5 years, obviously, it's been interrupted by COVID, so it'd be unfair to tarnish people with too much of a brush. But I think the last 12 months have been particularly partisan, much more than I've ever experienced on a community council. But generally speaking, we've always got on and been very collaborative in the way that we approach things. My big hope is that after May's elections, after that first meeting, that we realise that actually we've got 5 years of working together to do the very best for our communities, whoever sits on. It's very, very important that we get back to that as quickly as possible, because we don't have to be at loggerheads. Let's just remember a community council is exactly that. It's the people that are there to do the best for their community.
That's good. Yeah, it's a shame that the last year has been partisan like that. I mean, you've got some interesting characters there, but I mean, Courtney never has resolved that. I say once that first AGM was held, and I think the line was drawn. If you know what I mean, this is how it is now. Then it just moved forward harmoniously, really, all the way through.
I will say there was one councillor who's no longer on the council who was a bit difficult, as in one meeting, another councillor said, "Oh, I'll be happy to change the dog waste dispensers and that," and that councillor threw the keys at that person in the meeting.
But
No longer on the council. They just didn't turn
I
up.
don't think that was. I don't think that was party political. I think that was very personal.
Yeah, that was personal. It was party political. It was personal, but it was
Yeah.
the way that the keys were just thrown at this other councillor. Right, okay,
Yeah.
then you have it.
You have different personalities, so don't you? And
Yeah, but one thing
you know,
I want to ask you, Ian. Our community council, we get borough councillor updates. We get updates from Richard Young and Amanda Williams every month, regardless. There was a time when Richard was ill and we weren't getting the updates as much, but he was ill, to be fair with him, so he wasn't. But Richard does give updates and does give a lot of advice to us. But we have one councillor in the area who attended our first meeting and said, "I'll be sending an update every month and I'll come in," and that we haven't seen him since, have we?
no, I think what I think with respect, what we have are double-hatted councillors or twin-hatted councillors, however you want to put it, that come to Lalliston Community Council because it has a pot of funds and expects us to do the things that BCBC should be doing. As for updates, this might sound a bit harsh, but since I've certainly for a very long time, I'll put it like that. I'll use a Hugh David and not give an exact time frame. For a long time, we've not had any form of update from the borough councillors on what's going on, and actually it's something that's been picked up on. So it's something that is definitely going to have to improve, because communication is key, as we all know.
Yeah, I've got to go through it. As I said, I've got a lot of respect for Richard, and we had an argument a couple of times during the council meeting, but it's never been nasty and it's never been ill-tempered. It's different points of view, that's all. But he has guided us through certain processes that were a bit difficult, or the clerk could take a long time finding out the proper process, and he's guided us through that. And he's been a godsend at times to us on certain subjects where he can get in and get something moving a lot quicker. It's been fantastic. Do those two-hatted councillors on your council do that as well? Or do they just, this is what BCBC wants, so we're going to push it on to Lalliston and say, you...
That's not how it feels. I think we've had. I'm going to pick my words carefully, Luke. We've had a situation where our clerk has been off on the sick, and actually, one of those BCBC councillors has stood in with her husband and looked after all the finances, and that took a huge amount of extra work. And obviously, she's not getting paid for that.
No.
So you have to be very careful where you criticise without actually acknowledging some of the work that people do as well. But in the main, you'll have an example where somebody, I can think of a BCBC councillor. We've put some H bars down where a resident requested some, and he's gone off and actually got the prices for the companies and done that bit of legwork. But as far as actually putting expertise in place, in theory, we should have some real expertise, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
On regeneration and various things, but without being too critical, I don't see any of that coming to the table myself.
I know there's certain limitations, and we've seen that recently. What these two head councillors can actually do, and this is no way any criticism of Richard Young is fantastic. Even he had a problem with an issue we've had come up in, I think, it's over a year ago now, is residents want bollards at Litchfield Cross so cars can't cut across on the path which they've been doing. Now, a year ago, Quoty Higher Community Council said, we'll pay for them. It's a year later, BCBC is we're still waiting to get back to it. And it's causing hell. We had the resident in the last meeting, didn't we, Martin? And she spoke very eloquently, and she's getting frustrated.
That was embarrassing, frankly.
Yeah.
But there you go.
But
Well,
it's not,
look,
it's not Richard's fault. He's pushing, he's trying, but there's only so much he can personally do.
No, I'm mindful of the time, Luke. I don't know what time we're going to finish, but when we say we'll pay for it, it removes all of the excuses in theory, and then there's still not done. It's embarrassing because we look bad then because we've said we'd do it.
Yeah.
Well, do you know that the funny part is, Martin? One of the things Dave Harrison, who's standing in the neighbouring ward, and Kevin Glass has been highlighting a lot to me. It feels like Kevin Glass is the neglected corner of Bridgend as far as he's concerned. And actually, it comes to a point where I don't know how well you know the area, but coming down from Langewith Road at the crossroads, you come down towards the Westwood Community Centre, and you've got the fish and chip shop and everything at the bottom. Well, years and years and years ago, residents wanted a traffic management plan put in place to control the speed, because that, it's something is going to happen sooner or later. You've got cars parked either side, you've got kids playing everywhere.
It's a handy shortcut. Well, I say shortcut. It's a handy rat run to Brintillion School and Pen Bond, isn't it?
100% avoids lots of traffic lights.
Yeah.
But the actual bizarre thing is, Lalliston Community Council pledged £50,000, I believe was the sum, towards that project, and BCBC hadn't got time to do it, so the money's gone away again now.
Very similar to Hill Spencer. Very similar, yeah.
But that, ladies and gentlemen, is in the cabinet member's ward. So you have to look at that and go, well, really, what is the impetus in getting things sorted for residents? Because you've got the money there to pay for it. You've just got to go and have a conversation and say, look, come on.
Sorry, I mean, this goes back. If we go back, earlier, it's almost like the impotence of the cabinet members. Well, what's the point of you then? And it's not to say you should have favouritism for your ward, but it's and then they're campaigning. When I said that they're campaigning against his elements of his own LDP, and well, no, but you're in charge. You're in charge, and I don't know what's going on there in BCBC. I mean, I've heard it, in the past it's been said it's an officer-led council, and officers rule the roost, and cabinet members are too meek to challenge that. But we know that's not the case, don't we? Because in 2012,
well, this particular cabinet member, we know he's not afraid of speaking up when he feels that someone's arguing against him and his policy. Maybe he's just against arguing for his ward. Who knows?
Well, I mean, we know good point, and we know it's not the case because in 2012, a cabinet member managed to award himself a £350,000 contract. So we know they have power when it matters.
You're not allowed to criticise that, Martin. There's a statement gone out to say.
All right, sorry, I missed that.
There's a statement gone out today, is there?
No. It went out on a certain page, didn't it?
Oh.
Say, we've done nothing wrong. South Wales Police have exonerated us of any wrongdoing.
What I argued about earlier, but even the.
But it's an interesting one. They play both sides, don't they? One minute, we're in charge. I'm the cabinet member, and we saw Baldwin. We saw the Freedom of Information request, the email where he forbade an officer from
talking to the Bridgend Town Councillor.
And on the other hand, no, we've got to go through due process, and we can't possibly. Come on, we're not dull, are we?
It's whatever suits it
Maybe
at the time, though.
And maybe that's why you go back to perhaps just before you came on, Ian, we were talking about some of the animosity and aggression on social media. Is because I think perhaps for many years it has been thought we were stupid, and I think people are just beginning to see through all this nonsense now. We'll
I
see in
think a lot,
46.
a lot of people see Bridgend Borough Council spending lots of money on things whilst actually not improving their everyday lives. And, ultimately, that's what a borough council should be there to do. It should be there to affect the lives of the people that are paying its council tax. It's a bit of a sorry state, really, isn't it? I've said to you many times before, I find these disingenuous surveys of what shall we cut next to just be a ludicrous way of running a budget. It's just no wonder no one's got any trust in it all, is it? Really?
It seems. Again, this shows it's not a party political thing. RCT, which must have massive problems, and I don't live there. They do seem to have more about them. They seem to have more about them in the way they get things done. And BCBC to me, certainly when I've lived here since 2004, and certainly since I've been paying attention, seems to be in a state of constant decline. That rather than they blame cuts and blame cuts. And yes, there's been austerity and there's been perhaps more of what's the word I'm looking? Not philosophical. But anyway, there's been politically motivated cuts perhaps from central government. However, they don't seem to have had the message yet that it's not just about cutting limbs off. They need to do things differently.
But
It just seems to be a state of constant decline. And I think they've got to a point now where they do lack the in-house expertise to be able to do
100%.
almost anything.
But this is the bit that gets, and it's always got me. It's got me ever since I've moved to Bridgend. You've had the same party in power in Wales for the whole time. They're the people that dish out the money and spend it, and you've got a council that are run by that same party. But yet it's all the government in Westminster's fault. And that's simply because people don't understand or don't want to understand devolved politics. And actually, it's really easy to confuse people by saying, actually, it's their fault, because there's no accountability. And it's ridiculous. People are beginning to see through this now. And actually, the more devolved politics has gone on, the more people have actually gone, hold on a minute. We're electing these people and we're electing these people, and yet it's their fault.
See,
Well, you can't laud Mark Drayford for the way, if that's where you're inclined. You can't say what a saint he's been for his handling of COVID on the one hand, and then wash your hands of all the other stuff, can you? As you said, you own one, you own the other.
Well, I mean, you can laud Mark
Mark Drakeford.
Thank you. So I've just combined Hugh David and Mark Drakeford.
Well, there's not much difference.
Well, there is.
Meek,
one
meek
can talk on TV with a pre-script, the other one can't. So there is a big difference.
Which one's that?
Well, I'll let you decide that.
Well, no.
But Mark Drakeford, he can be lauded for keeping Wales safe, but likewise, he's also absolutely ruined the hospitality industry in Wales, which is going to take
absolutely.
years.
But they won't own
years
that one, will they?
And
that's my point.
industry.
That's my point. They'll claim the good. They'll claim the perceived.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, we shall see. I mean, in years to come, I'm sure many reports will be written on this, and we shall see.
Well, I'm going to say the handling of the pandemic. Every area handled it differently. Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and they all have their successes and they all have their failures. But I've got to say, Jamie Wallace the other week questioned Mark Drakeford of why he thinks it's appropriate for a UK only one when Scotland are doing theirs and Wales are just going in with the UK one, not what we differently. And his reply was, well, Boris Johnson says it's good enough. First time I've ever heard a Labour member turn around and say, Boris Johnson says it's good enough, so we should do it. Wales needs its own inquiry into the handling of the pandemic. They could come out, they did what they could, which was what was necessary. Fine, fair enough. But you've got to learn from how you handled things, not a UK-wide handling, because it's not
Oh, yeah,
going to
but
focus
it's a
on
lot
you.
easier not to be accountable for what you've
Yeah.
done if it's done on a UK-wide level, isn't it? So, you know, let's be very, very clear. There's only one reason why that's wanting to be done on the UK level.
Oh God, something's coming up on my computer.
Amy popped up then, and she said if COVID has helped anything, it has been drawing the light on devolution of what powers Wales do and don't have, and it's just what we've been saying there. Yeah, absolutely.
I pulled that up, but I was someone who, well, I moved to Wales to Bridgend, in fact, on the 18th of July, 1992. It was my father's birthday on that day, so I've been here in and around Bridgend for the last 30 years. I voted for devolution because I think Wales should have its own say in certain things and how they do things, because the needs of areas differ greatly throughout the country. Even England on its own, everything's done at Westminster and then through the councils. And yet the north and south are like Wales and Scotland or Wales and Northern Ireland.
Listen, Luke, devolution shouldn't be a bad thing, right?
No.
Taking power out of central government and putting it in the hands of people locally to be able to distribute it, in theory, should be a very, very good thing.
Yeah.
And actually, I've always been pro-devolution, and I would argue that England needs its own devolved administrations, because actually it misses out massively compared to what they have in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. But also, there has to then be a clear understanding between the electorate and with the electorate on who is responsible for what, rather than just blaming each other. And actually, that's what you get, is you just get this distortion that says, you know, well, it's their fault, and that's not on. You know, I'll give you for example locally. So, for example, locally, Jamie Wallace has been asked on a number of occasions to come along and have a look at a safe route to schools. Now, education is devolved. It's got nothing to do with Jamie Wallace. So, you know, the safe route to school is going to be dealt with by the local council. Anything to do with education is going to be dealt with by the Welsh Government in Cardiff. But yet, you know, people's misconception is actually my MP can do something about that. No, he can't. In actual fact, he should be turning around and saying, "I'm really sorry, I can't do anything about that. It's a devolved power. You need to be contacting your assembly member." But obviously, then people would think that he's just being bone idle. So he's in a no-win situation either way.
Yeah, I'm not against devolution in any fashion. I think it can work if done correctly, but we've had devolution since 1999. We voted for it in 97. 2 years later, in 99, we had the Welsh Government. We had Robert Morgan to start with, then Carwyn, and now Mark Drakeford. And it's just been one failure after another with the same government and the same people in there.
That's not strictly true. It's been great for Cardiff.
Well, it's been great for Cardiff because if you look in the apportioning to how much money they get from Welsh Government every year, where other councils like Bridgend went through cuts of 0.5% year on year, Cardiff kept getting more money.
Yeah.
Was getting an increase every year, whether it was 1% or 1.5% one year. It's been great, but NHS in Wales has suffered. They've done a poor job in that. Education standards in Wales have dropped. We've dropped down the leaderboard of the world board to thing. It's just keeping dropping. It hasn't worked. I can't understand. I do know this thing. My grandfather voted for him, so then I'm voting for him. My dad did, and the family. I understand. stand that, but people forgot how to think for themselves.
But you can't criticise Labour in the NHS because it always comes back to an Iron Bevan, right? And that for me is just brilliant. I know my history, but in 2012, I can remember just being elected as a community councillor, and the South Wales plan came on board.
Yeah.
And they were pitting us against
Royal
Prince
Commotion.
Charles and the Royal Glam for neonatal obstetrics, A&E. And you sat there going, hold on a minute, when someone needs emergency medical care, they need to get to a hospital as quickly as they possibly can. Can you imagine going from the top of the Garrow Valley to Prince Charles in Merthyr?
It takes 2 hours, an hour and a half.
But the thing is they scrapped this. But there was a clear need to do something with the NHS.
Yeah.
Right. So they had this plan. This is what they were going to do. They were going to build these big regional centres, or they were going to convert the hospitals to big regional centres, because that was what was needed. And then they decided they weren't going to do that. So what did they do instead? Because there was obviously a need to do something. So instead of doing that, they just maintain the status quo. And actually, what they have done is they've moved services out and through the back door.
That's like local government reorganisation, isn't it? I mean, then we were going to merge with Vale, or we were going to merge with it, and I think everyone
expected us to merge with the Vale.
That the 22 authorities aren't right. And some authorities are probably too small to be properly sustainable, because I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, Merthyr, Anglesey, are they big enough? Do they have a big enough population to truly stand by themselves as unity authorities? And I think I seem to remember something from when it was all formed, that it was all a little bit of an experiment, because as usual, just like the smoking ban and other things, they trialled out in Wales before they trialled in England, and England didn't really go for unity authorities. I think there was a bit of a play at them, at Torbay, for example, places like that. But so I think it was always a bit of a petri dish, but nothing's happened since. So now we've got the city deal. So how does that sit in? How does the city deal sit in when you've got? I mean, Wales is only 3 odd million people, so you've got Welsh government, 22 authorities, 720 community councils, and then city deals in the middle. What the hell is going on? And it's exactly the same. So there was a need to do something, and it was rejected or objected to, and then stopped. And now what? Is that what the city deal is? Is that the proxy?
We'll wait and see, won't we? I mean, the city deal is either going to be the biggest. It's just going to be the biggest elephant in the room, isn't it? Or it's actually going to deliver something. But so far, it just seems to me that we're paying to increase the capital rather than to actually see any benefit from it here. And ultimately,
sorry, I'll open another can of worms there.
No. If we're going to pay into something, though, we've got to see the benefit of it. And I'm as you know, Martin, I'm not entirely against the city deal. What I am against is I'm against pumping our money into Cardiff and it being spent there. Right? If we're going to invest money to get something bigger and better back, then we have to get something back. But yet these are the people that we've elected, or people have elected. I'll say I've elected, but they represent us. That they've got to go and say, look, we're paying this, we want that, and ultimately, as long as we're getting that, the city deal works. But at the moment,
at one level, the city deal is a really good deal. We put in 10 local authorities, put in 120 million. Westminster multiply that by 4, so they had 3 times that, and we end up with a pot of 480 million. What's not to like? Perfect. The problem is we gave over our 11.3. So all the local authorities put their 120 in the middle, and the government's contribution to a central body, which we are only a tenth of. So we will never have any real influence over that. RCT and Cardiff will always have the lion's share of that because they're the most influential. We gave over our bargaining power at the outset. We just gave it away. So why couldn't we have said, okay, local authorities, we think a better deal is we'll put in our 120 million. We'll let the government will give another 360. We'll have 120 million of that. And then centrally, we'll have 240 million. Yeah. So so there's a fair division now. So centrally, the central cabinet will have in the pot for 240 million to do with what the region is right for the region. And then each local authority will double their money to either spend in their own patch, or if they so want, to team up with others or contribute to a regional project where there is clear. I mean, why didn't they do that? And I'm pretty certain there was nothing in the rules to say they couldn't, because the Swansea City deal was entirely different.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with it per se, but why give all your cards away?
I can see what's happening. I will say today, I don't know, it was announced 3.5 million for redoing the former Revlon site into a park and ride, which I don't think is the right thing. But yeah, 3.5 million is coming to Bridgend. It's something. But I can see what's going to happen, because if you remember, it was, what's that? I can't see what
was handed there. Ian might have seen me being handed this, actually. A freedom of information request. Right, to date, BCBC have paid in £4 million into the city deal. £4 million, which, because you're an astute mathematician, you'll realise is £500,000 more than we're getting back for the Revlon site. Right. I think 60% of the Revlon site is owned by a private developer.
Yeah.
So we've paid £4 million in. We've had to beg for £3.5 million back to redevelop. Not redevelop, to remediate, because there's no development at all. This is a little bit of a car park. A site which is 60% owned by a private developer. Yeah. So we've got to beg for our money. How about this? Let's forget it's a private developer in the first place. Let's pretend that paying for the remediation of private land is a good thing. Why didn't we just cut out the middleman, spend £3.5 million 3 years ago, remediating this site? Then we could have remediated it, developed it, sold it on, got our money back, and we'd have the 3.5 million plus in our bank account now to go and do something else with.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that 3.5 million is grossed up by times at a ratio of 3 to 1 by the Westminster government.
Yeah. If you remember back to the merging of councils, do any of you remember whose big idea that was? No? It was Mark Drakewood's.
I thought, I knew Drakewood was involved, but it was Leighton Andrews as well, wasn't it?
It was Leighton Andrews was certainly to do with all of the health services as well, wasn't it?
It was Mark Drakeford's big idea of merging councils. He wanted to merge Bridgend with RCT. Two of them. He was trying, and in all these things, he was merging the most deprived areas together, and then the wealthiest areas. Like he wanted the Vale and Cardiff together. He wanted RCT and Bridgend, and I believe Merthyr was being put in with us as well, together. Now, if you look at the region deal, what that will do...
That's the old mid-glam, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
What the region deal will do is say, oh, look, you're all in this thing together. We're just going to make you one whole council run from Cardiff. And that's what it'll end up being in 10 years' time.
Well, let's hope not, Luke. Otherwise you'll be given a crystal ball and you'll be able to predict the future. And that sounds like a terrible idea to me. Anyway, on that note, my battery is about to collapse on my phone, so I'm going to love you and leave you. And I will look forward to speaking to you both soon.
Thank you very much for joining, Ian. Goodbye,
Take care.
Ian. I'm going to give goodbyes now and say. But just before I go, I predicted things last year and say they would either freeze council tax or lower council tax even before they had money. And I said this back in September last year. And what happened? They froze it. So I'm predicting 10 years from now, or within 10 years, they'll say, oh, you're working together in the region deal. You may as well just be one council. We'll run you all from Cardiff. That's what will happen.
I think, I
What
think,
will
I think
become
that
is
that
a
is.
suburb.
I think that is an incredibly wise assessment. I think that is what the plan of some people is. However, think on this. Think on this. 50, soon to be 51 councillors. I can't remember what we're dropping down to. Is it 51 councillors?
Uh,
54 councillors
four,
currently.
49, was it?
Oh, I can't count. I should know. We're dropping councillors here. Anyway, 50-ish councillors here, 70-ish in Cardiff, all of those councillors, if they are Labour members, give 10% of their earnings to the Labour Party.
Yeah,
Fewer councillors.
fewer earnings. Yeah.
And
Anyway,
on that note, and on that bombshell,
I'm gonna say goodbye anyway. But thank you, Martin, for joining me. You calmed me down, and I went off all the rant completely in the end. And Ian came in. It was good. Amanda was brilliant, and I think
I was
this
hiding. I was terrified.
that
I was
was
terrified. I was hiding in the corner of the room.
that is perfect. Hi, Martin, Amanda for president. Perfect. That is. I think that's perfect. I think if independents do end up in the majority and do work together as a group, I think Alex and Amanda as leader and deputy would be fantastic for this county. I think it was two fantastic councillors there who clearly demonstrate each day that they work, that they are working for the people of their community, not for their own gains or not for what they want. It's for what the people of their community want. Both of them do.
And I'll pass that on if she's not watching this. But at the end of the day, though, politics is it's the art of the possible, isn't it? And it's also a numbers game. Sorry, I'm full of cliches. It's also a contact sport, but we've talked about that. But seriously, it's a numbers game, and I think ultimately it'll come down to on May the 6th when we start counting, because it's the day after. We're not having the overnight count, which is sad. But we'll have to see what the numbers shake down, and we'll have to see what combinations there are, and let's not hope there's not too many deals and compromise have to be done. But I think you're right. I think there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent up for election now.
I'm going to make this prediction now with the election. I believe say it's 50 seats, so for a majority you need 26 or 25 at least to have a good chance of control. I predict Labour are going to end up with 21 seats, independents with I'd say they're going to make up as many seats as Labour, if not just one or two short. And the rest is going to be between Plaid, Lib Dem and Conservatives. So that's my prediction, and it's whether the independents and the other groups can work together to create an alliance to take over the leadership of the council in that respect. So that's my prediction. I think Labour will have more seats than anybody else, but it's not going to be a close majority like it is now, where it's one or two seats. I think they're going to have a majority, but if other groups work together, they can have more than four or five, maybe even 6 seats more than what Labour would have. And I hope,
as Oscar Wilde said, there's no worse fate to befall man than to live in interesting times. However, I think interesting times are ahead.
Yes, I think it's going to be a close election. I can see a couple of Labour councillors losing their seats. We know some aren't standing, such as Richard Young isn't standing this time. I believe Nicola Burnett isn't standing again. I think I saw she posted she wasn't standing again. So there's 2 seats there that I think are easily winnable for independents. Very winnable for independents. And I think you're going to get more independents in my state I think they're going to add to what they've got up there. Porthcawl, I'm not too sure about. And Pencoid, I think Alex will definitely keep his seat. I don't know about Julie Williams or anybody else because I'm clearly seen, but I think Alex will because he's hugely respected by constituents there. So I think Alex will
I'm not making
keep
any
his seat.
predictions. I'm not making any predictions. You wouldn't expect me to.
Make a prediction, Martin. I'm forcing you. Go on, Martin. Make a prediction. I'm joking. You don't have
Yeah,
to.
no, I think it'll be. I think it'll be interesting. That's my prediction. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. And also, let's be fair. I think you know, a couple of hundred votes could be 3 or 4 seats. If they, it depending on how they're spread, you know. You know,
I think it will. I think
a few hundred votes, as we saw last time, a few hundred votes in
Martin's
could see more independence, and that would have been an entirely different story, you know. So let's see, you know.
Anyway, thank you, Martin, for joining me, and thank you everybody for listening to me tonight. I thought I was going to have to do a 2-hour rant completely on my own. I mean, instead it's turned into 2.5 hour rant, 2.5 hour with two good friends and two nice people.
My cocoa's gone cold as well.
And next time, I promise everybody, I'll have Amanda on. She's more passionate than Martin. I've got to say, she gave me shivers. I thought it's like the old stereotypical head mistress telling you off and that. And I thought, oh gosh, oh shit. It's like Amy says there, got shivers. Yeah, I did. She's passionate and powerful. I think she would make one day a good leader of the council, if not deputy. Same with Alex as well. Anyway, I'm going to say goodnight, everybody, and thank you for joining me and Martin and Ian. Hope to see you again soon. I will try and get this live stream special with Alex, Amanda, and Tim on soon because I think the parking problem needs to be highlighted at schools before something serious happens again. Anyway, I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Good night. Have a good evening. Have a great week. Bye.
Thanks, Lou. See you, everyone. Bye-bye.